Okay, so we're going to discuss the topics of what is cubic, what is a cubic tangle, what are the various aspects of a cubic tangle, and how do we react to events that happen when things arrive on a cubic tangle. So let's get started first. A cubic tangle, or cubic, is quorum-based computation. It's just QBC pronounced. Cubic is a way of arranging quorum, which is a distributed computation idea. How to arrange quorums on a distributed network. Cubic's first main component is, I should use black, I suppose. The first main component that we're concerned with in cubic is the formation of a committee. A committee is a group of oracles who have published resource tests during a resource test phase. There are two phases, a resource test phase and a computation phase. A computation, and both of these have finite duration. The combination of the two creates an epoch of that committee. If we consider this to be somewhat similar to how committees in a political or a civil nature are run, then we would say that this is like a session of a committee. For example, the Congress runs a year-long session, and in 2019, I believe it's the 116th Congress. So that's an example of an epoch in the way that we're talking about. So there can be many committees composed of many oracles, each of whom make many resource tests. There is one phase of each of these, and there are many epochs. So to consider this, you could think of Ethereum as a committee, except for the fact that it doesn't operate as a committee. It operates as a single elector computation system. But our committees in Qubic are formed by an announcement. So someone makes a message to announce the new committee. The announcement will have some metadata associated with it, namely the epoch duration, the resource test duration, and From that we can derive the computation phase duration, the processing phase duration. I'll call it processing phase. And I'll put this in parentheses because it's implicit. We derive it from these two. Something else that it has in the metadata is it has a stake allocation in just positive integers to give a to represent a percentage allocation between different types of resource tests. So one type of a resource that someone might have, it could be a proof of work. So we'll have stake allocation. And we're going to erase this and dive a little bit into stake allocations. So I could, for example, have one of the resources be a public key ID, which is it's like the idea of a proof of stake. It's given by dictum. That's the ability that represents someone's ability to sign a message. Another type of stake, of course, is proof of work. And to each of these, they would assign some weight. And the cumulative of all of these would give us our final weight from which we would derive the percentages of each of these. So I'll give public key a weight of, we'll just say, public key A has a weight of 100 and proof of work has a weight of 600, totaling a cumulative weight of 700. So I could look at this and I could derive that 1/7 of the weight is allocated to some specific voter A. And this has a particular use case in bootstrapping of a committee where we could have the person creating the new committee wants to ensure the integrity of it, and they will commit to be some percentage. In this case, this wouldn't really help them to keep the full integrity of it, but they could make that some larger number, for example 700, and this would change to 1300. And then they would have a greater than 50% stake in the committee and their vote would go. They could alternatively choose something like 600 and then they could do a proof of work themselves. Again, they'd have the say. They could lower that to whatever amount they like, but let's just say that they keep it at 700 to get started, and this will essentially be something that will allow people an entrance and an exposure to this new committee and allow this committee to gain trust of the various participants in the network who are interested in consuming their computations. So that helps in the bootstrap phase, providing this in particular. Another thing that we could provide is it could be the output of some function. So it could be so just a definition of a proof of work weighing mechanism could be given, and that function result would give us the final would allow us to validate any given resource test. So that would be a custom one that could give us really anything. It could even be something that follows the output of a separate committee. Just to give an example. And this kind of thing would give us the ability to have more human-centric committees formed. I'll give this video a pause and we'll come back.